we've done so far in the book, in the Sefer Derech Hashem, we've covered 4 chapters, 4 parts of the first Hilek. The very beginning dealt with the Emunat HaBoreh, with having the foundation that we call Emunah or faith. After that, we went on to the second part, which deals with the Tachlit HaBriyah. Once a person accepts that there is a creator, you can go on to the next step in trying to determine what the purpose of the creation was. We covered that. After that, after we figured out that there is a purpose, we needed to understand what the difference is between the various species that were created and the uniqueness of the human being in particular, whereas he was endowed with free will, for example. And then we went on to explain last week that after we understand that the human being is unique, what is his role exactly, and how is he supposed to go about accomplishing that role? The last chapter of this Hilek Aleph, deals with the various other creations in the world, including demons and angels. After we finish with this chapter, now begins the more fascinating part of the more mystical part of this whole sefer, right? Including reincarnation, Hashgacha Prati, astrology, that all. But we have to have a foundation. We have to understand the basics. So today we're going to cover the last Hilek, the last chapter of the Hilek that deals more with the Emunah, with the creation. What is there here besides us and animals, obviously? All right. So he begins to say as follows: that this world, that as we know it, the planets plus all the celestial bodies, right? Millions, billions of galaxies. All of that we see is only the material, the physical. In reality, there's 2 types of creations. One is spiritual and one is physical. But when we say physical, we don't only mean what we see as physical down here on Earth, but also that includes the celestial bodies, the moon, the planets. All of that is also called physical bodies. There are certain things that we can sense and feel, and certain things that we cannot see. Even electricity is something that we cannot see, but we know it exists because we see how it works and how it performs. Scientists have a problem. They can only believe in what they see. But they don't see electricity, but obviously they see at least what it does. There are many things that we don't see, but we believe in them because we supposedly are able to see what they do. In other words, Borei Olam has throughout the history of mankind demonstrated through Nisim and Niflaot, through miracles and through all sorts of wonders, that he exists. The survival of the Jewish people in itself is the greatest miracle of all, that even non-Jews have wondered and have admired. So that in itself tells you that there's something else other than just physical and mortal. We know it. Now, even though these are the 2 more common ones, creations in the world, the physical and the spiritual, there's one that's in between. That is in between the physical and the spiritual. It's not complete physical, and it's not complete spiritual. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about the spiritual. Just like there is all types of physical creation, there are several types of spiritual creation. What are the spiritual creations? The Malachim are the most common ones, the angels. But even amongst the angels, there's all types of angels, different kinds, with different missions. And there's something called Kohot Ruchanim. Kohot Ruchanim means spiritual powers. That the world is good or bad. And I'll talk about that later. Yeah? Just spiritual powers. Which is spiritual, meaning that you cannot touch and feel. That's all. Alright? Or see. Right. This other creation, which is half, well, it's not exactly half, but in between, is the Shadim. They are the one of a kind. The only type in the world that is in between. I didn't say it has both, because the only one that has both is who? Human being. The human being is the only one that has both, but he's not in between. Both meaning that he has part Gashmi, part of the physical body, and part Ruchani, that's the Neshama that he has in him. So, I failed to mention the Kohot HaRuchanim. Besides the Kohot HaRuchanim, we have Neshamot too. Those who created Neshamot, created Malachim, created Kohot HaRuchanim. All of those are spiritual. But the human being has a little bit of both. This other creation, which is in between, is called Shadim, the demons. They also have many groups and subgroups, Mashchetim, Se'irim. They have various names given in the Torah because they perform different things. The common denominator with all these things, on the Chaneh Meshutaf, is that they were created for a purpose. Kabbalistic didn't just throw them here for no reason. Everything was created for a purpose, but when were they should be created? Anybody know? The last moment, before Shabbat, before the entering of Shabbat. Man was created on Friday. But Ben Hashem Mashot, right in Pirkei Avot, to learn that there were several things that were created at that moment. Ben Hashem Mashot meaning at twilight, right before Shabbat enters. These are things that are not part of the regular creation. They're unique in some way.
So there were creations after man.
Yeah.
That's what there were.
There were a few.
I was under the impression man was his final creation.
Of the main creation, but there were a few items, only a few items, not a major category, that were created Ben Hashem Mashot, which is a twilight time, which means that they're not really necessary for this world, right? Give an example. Remember the mouth of the donkey. Yeah, all these miraculous things were created then. What do they all have in common for the most part? Well, they don't all have in common that, but part of the reason why they were created then is that they are not necessary for this world. Everything in this world, there's a necessity and there's a purpose, and in the 6 days of the week, there's a certain organization and structure, right? There's the moon and the sun and the stars, there's the grasses, the trees. These are in a separate group in itself, and they don't really belong with the rest of them, and they are unique. They're either miraculous, or they don't fit into with the laws of nature. That's a very important point because everything is governed by laws. And some things are supernatural. What does that mean? That they're not governed by the same laws. So they are created by themselves, separately, including the Shadim. Now, this is an important idea here because many people, when they first hear about it, you mean there really are such things called the demons? It's not a myth, it's not something that the Goyim invented. Well, a lot of things that they have, they took from us. And remember, in the Middle Ages, in medieval times, these things were common knowledge. Everybody was aware about these things. If you read old Japanese literature, it talks about demons. They even have pictures of them that they drew, what they saw. Right? Almost in every culture, every people, back then they all believed it. Not because they were backward or they were not cultured, it's because they related to these things. Today, man has gone away from religion. Western civilization has become very advanced technologically. There's been an emphasis in science. So life has changed dramatically. So in the Western world, if you don't see these things, you don't hear about it too often. But of course it exists. Yeah, sometimes, sure. And there are stories that people who've seen them all over at certain times, in the right circumstances, and they were either hurt by them or whatever. You know, there's different types. Some are dangerous and some are not as dangerous. Anyway, I can give you a whole lecture just on that. What they're for, what they do, what their job is, how they live and how they die. How they look. There's different types of them, but that's not important for now. No, not right now. Yeah. That's a whole subject itself. Yeah. Anyway, if you want to see them, go to Melrose.
Especially tonight. Oh yeah. Next Halloween.
Especially tonight.
Matter of fact, they cordoned off just for the Shadim.
Okay.
I'm about to say Shadim.
All right. Now, the rabbis tell us that man was one of the last things created. Right? Yeah. Why was he created at the end and not at the beginning? Because everything should be ready for him. In other words, what that shows us is that everything in the world that Hashem created was to serve Him. L'sharet oto. Everything in this world is prepared to serve Him. Therefore, all the minerals that exist, all the precious gems, those who created it for a reason. It's not that by accident topaz and amethyst and opal formed, right? All these those who put it into the creation. How do we know that? Maybe it is just an accident. First of all, there are no accidents. And number two, we even used it in the Bet HaMikdash, right? The Kohen Gadol, big gold, the silver, the copper, everything. They don't have as big as what he had, right? Beautiful stone, all this beautiful, right? Right. So we know that there's a reason for it. Now, but geologists claim that it took millions of years to form as a result of decay of plant life. The oil, I'm talking about oil, for example. And diamonds, you need a tremendous amount of heat and pressure over time to form, and they can do it. They can replicate it today. That's what you have. Zirconium. Yeah, that's true. Perhaps we agree with that. But perhaps it would take that long to do it in a natural process. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Midrash tells us, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, He created it ready-made. Where do we learn this from? Adam HaRishon was born like a 20-year-old man. He was created like a 20-year-old man. He was not created like a baby. When he was created, Hashem made him like a 20-year-old man. The world was created ready-made. Go ahead. It's ready. Faddal.
So He created it
with fossils in the ground of dinosaurs.
No. That is an opinion brought down by several rabbis, but I don't espouse that because you don't have to say that.
What do you mean you don't have to say that?
There's no need to subscribe to that.
How do you explain fossils?
Go ahead. And what else?
Which throughout technology leads to millions of
Okay, fine. Okay, I'll do it briefly. I gave a whole lecture on this.
Right.
There's various types of dating. The most accurate form of dating is called carbon-14 dating. Carbon-14. That's the most accurate. And it works. In other words, they've taken things that they know when they exist. For example, Cleopatra's items. No, her items, her objects. They know when she lived, right? They know when she lived, when she was around. So they were able to, use this method and say, oh, this is 3,000 years old or whatever. And we know it works, it's accurate because we know that she was 3,000 years ago. Right? The problem with that method of dating, however, is that even though it can very accurately date and measure certain items, it has limitations and it has assumptions. The limitations is, it only works till 50,000 years. Well, you say, okay, I'll say 50,000 years. We only 5,703. But even they claim the limitation of it is only 50,000 years. But more importantly, it's based on certain assumptions that you cannot prove. And that's the biggest problem. Because one of the most important assumptions, anachot, is that the world was exactly the same all along from day one. And as a result of being everything the same, the decomposition, right, was at a steady rate. This works based on the decomposition, of the matter. And that's not true. Because all you needed was one big mabul, right? For an entire year that threw everything off. I have a whole lecture on that, on why it's not completely reliable. So therefore, as far as dating is concerned, one of the most reliable methods, they themselves claim it cannot go beyond 50,000 years. So all the millions of years that you hear about is not based on that. It's based on assumptions that dinosaurs could never have lived together with humans. We made such an assumption, right? And therefore, whenever you find the dinosaurs, it means that layer is millions of years old, right? But what if dinosaurs did live with humans, right? Then that layer does not have to be that millions of years old, right? It's all based on assumptions. They found human prints with dinosaurs. Yeah. But they said probably somebody chiseled them in the middle of the night. It can't be. They've already made a decision that it can't be, and they don't want to consider it. So that's ridiculous. That's not science. Right?
Don't consider the weight of the water.
We know that these things may have existed before the Mabul, and we know from past history that many species that may have been in existence once upon a time, but they've become extinct as a result of hunger, human intervention, disease, and Mabul. So we don't have a problem with that. So when you find fossils, yes, they existed once upon a time. Why do they look old? Why do they appear old? Because of the effects of the Mabul. And we don't have any reliable method anyway that goes back too far. So there's no real problem with that. So, but the creation of the world itself, the oils and the minerals and everything, that the Midrash says is ready-made. That we have. Even though it's very possible that if we were to do it by natural means, it would take millions of years. But Hashem created the world. And everything that's in the world was for the purpose of serving mankind. So it had to be there to begin with. And it's incredible how much oil there is. You give it to those people. You know how much oceans and oceans of oil.
Yeah, and they find more.
Look at the lava. Look at the lava in Italy right now.
So all this, Hashem put it there for what reason? So in the 19th and 20th century, mankind will have this energy form,
You give it to the wrong people.
Yeah. Otherwise, what's the purpose of it? What else do you
So you give it to the wrong people.
No? All right.
When you give it to the wrong people, the oil.
All right, let's go on. Anyway, so this human being that we said before is composed of the two parts, of the spiritual part and the physical part. That spiritual part forms a bond with him and remains with him until the day of death. That is something that the animals do not have, only the human being. And it's through that spiritual neshama that he has that enables him to be different in a very unique way, as we said before, through his exercising of the free will. He goes on to explain that everything that is gashmi, everything that is materialistic and physical, it is known to us because it has rules and it follows certain rules that are known to us. But the spiritual ones, we cannot figure them out. We cannot have a clear understanding on how they work. He's giving us right now an introduction, and I think he did that also before, that there are certain things that we will never be able to fully understand how they function because we can't see them. That which is physical, like the laws of nature, we see how wind comes about. We can explain how tornadoes are formed and how hurricanes come about. Even so, by the way, you should know that even we can explain it, that it's through lows and highs and pressures and all that. You can, even though you can explain it, just like they're trying to explain geological faults as the cause of earthquakes, it still leaves out the most important part. Well, who put them there to begin with? Who put the fault? Who made the fault? Who generates it? Who's really behind the earthquake? Who's really behind the tornado? And there is a malach mashchet. There's a destructive angel. All these natural disasters, even though we can explain them using the laws of nature, there's something behind it, causing it. Just like in the parashat of Vayera, of the Ma'apecha of Sdom ve'Amorah, the destruction of the city. It appears as a natural disaster on the outside, but who did it? We know from the Torah. We know from reading the parasha that there were angels sent to do it. How they do it, we don't know how they do it. They have permission. Of course, Malachim are shalichim. Malach is a shaliach. Malach is a messenger. Right? So we don't understand how these things happen. All we know is behind it. Nothing happens by accident. There's a reason. Today they're discovering, because of powerful microscopes, they're able to see that all this bacteria is really living cells. I mean, there's something there. It's not just dirt. I mean, there's a creature there. There's something that causes this infection. There's little worms in the body. Did you know that everybody has little worms in the body? Sure. Not only when he dies.
We know that. Yeah, we know that.
Huh? Did you know that?
I knew that from Egypt.
What?
In Egypt, my grandma told me.
Little things.
I guess I didn't go to medical school that day.
No, it's true. Yeah, these small ones.
I missed the biggest lecture of my 4 years.
Yeah. There are all sorts of microscopic things that exist that
they find you
live everywhere that we can't see. So today, because of the very powerful microscopes, we're able to see the entire structures, life in every single cell. It's incredible. The Lord who has put so much chokhmah, so much wisdom into these small little things. How they multiply later. Yeah, exactly. Each one has its food. All right. The next important point is that everything that happens in this world, in this physical world, is somehow connected to the world above. Even though the worlds, they're different, they're separate, right? One is above and one is below, there's a connection. And the best way to imagine this, and this will help us understand what Ain Hara is. At the very end, remind me, if I forget, I'll explain briefly how Ain Hara, the evil eye, works.
And you have a cure for you.
Yeah. All right, yeah. The first thing to understand is that there is a connection between the upper worlds and the bottom worlds. And this connection is like an umbilical cord. Okay. And through this umbilical cord, the worlds above can affect us in a way that he will explain in further chapters. And through that same umbilical cord, or through that connection and link, we can affect the upper worlds. They affect us in a spiritual way, through kohot, that we cannot understand how it works. We affect it through our physical action, whether that physical action is a dibur, by saying bad words, by speaking lashon hara, or by taking certain actions. So when you read halacha, that one has to be very careful with how he pronounces the words, with his kavanah in the Kriyat Shema. Otherwise, according to the Kabbalah, olamot elyonim, he's destroying upper worlds. Well, what upper worlds am I destroying? What is wrong with, this? If I don't say one word correctly, what am I already doing? People do not realize what they're doing, but there's a tremendous amount of damage.
Maybe it's better not to pray at all.
No. But no, prayer is a very powerful thing. But you have to have the right kavanah, and you have to be careful that you don't be careful. Yeah.
It's frightening.
Yeah, that you don't say it in the wrong way. In any event, that link works both ways. In the way it affects us, the same way we can affect it. Alright, another perhaps one before we go on is that everything in this world was created complete, as we said before. That means it's ready to be used. It's not lacking anything. The only one that was created incomplete was the human being. The human being is the only thing that was spiritual, physical. No, Brit is just a sign to remind him that Hashem could have made him born circumcised, but the fact that he made a Jew circumcise himself, he's reminding him that you're incomplete physically. You need to mature. spiritually. And that's one of your goals in life. That is why you were born as an infant. You cannot feed yourself, you're dependent on others. That is why you circumcise yourself. Just to remind you that you have something to complete in this world. You're incomplete. Everything in this world Hashem made, right? And therefore it's complete and it's beautiful and it's perfect and it's good. On man is not written the word "tov," like in the rest of creation, because it all depends on what he will do with himself. Maybe he will be an evil man. He will be a righteous man. Not on a human being. Right? That's what the day. Not only when a person dies. Once he dies, we're able to determine whether this was a good man or not. To contribute to society. Not if he won the Nobel Peace. That does not determine if he was good. In other words, what did he do with himself? What did he contribute? Only then can we tell. So this is another distinction between everything else in the creation and the human. Since we're talking about neshamot, I'm going to mention something else that he does not mention. Space for us a little to elaborate just a little bit on it. Also, a big subject in itself, very fascinating. And that is a subject of neshamot that are divided into male. We just said before that yes, there are spiritual creations, one of them being neshamot. But you should know that neshamot consists of two parts, zachar and nekeva, male and female. According to the Zohar, that neshama, before it comes down, it splits. The zachar goes one way, the nekeva goes one way. And usually the zachar, the male, is born first, enters a body first before the female, and that is why most of the time, in a real zibuk situation, the husband is older than the wife. That is why the Gemara says, Bat ploni le ploni. When the mazal is being prepared, when the Kadosh Baruch Hu, or the malach, through Kadosh Baruch Hu, telling us that this girl who will be born in such a home will be his soulmate, what is he saying? Is he saying the girl's name? No, he's saying Bat Ploni, the daughter of so-and-so, will be his zivuk, the one who's about to be born, the one who's becoming an embryo now in his mother's womb. Why Bat Ploni? Because she's not around yet. She will be born in that household.
And he gives the name to the boy
Yeah, the boy is right now, he's in the embryo of his mother, right now. Arba'im Yom calling it Sirat Avlad. It's 40 days before the
baby. He call him by name?
It's right at the time of conception, right. That it's being determined, his mazal is being determined, and his zivuk is going to be given to him. It's being announced who she is or who she will be. She's not born yet. So what do they say? Bat Ploni. It's that man's daughter.
And for who?
For this one who's about to be born 9 months from now.
They call him Ben so-and-so?
No, they tell him Ploni, so-and-so, Yaakov, who will be born 9 months from now.
The father is going to call him Yaakov?
Whatever, he has a name upstairs too.
Oh.
This neshama, right, who's being formed right now, his zibug, his real soulmate, will be born in that household.
And that's his other half.
That's the other half of the neshama. If it's a real zibug, not necessarily they will meet each other, but if it's the real zibug, it's the other half of his neshama. If it's the other half of the neshama, that is the best combination possible for that other neshama.
Sure.
Wait. Right, I told you it's a big subject. So
If you get past the first 5 years and that.
No, not even 30 years.
I told you one of the best tests if you want to know if you married your zivug or not is ask yourself, would you marry her again? Okay.
If she asks you or you ask her?
What? Ask yourself.
Yeah, I would ask yourself.
Okay.
I said it many times.
As long as you're fair, you analyze everything, all the pros and cons, and say, yeah. I said usually. Maybe I didn't clarify it. Usually the case is that the man is older than the woman because she's not around usually when he's being born. But it is possible. There are situations where they were born around the same time. The difference could be very little.
But not older.
No, she can be older too, but that's not usually the case. Usually it's the other way around, but it can be. Right. Now, this is right, but let me just finish it. This is a very complex subject. I'm just going to throw you a little bit of a monkey wrench here. Today, many of us are Gilgulim, are reincarnation, which means, even though I'm jumping a little bit, but in order to explain this, I have to mention, which means that the male soul has been here several times. The male keeps coming back maybe several times to fix itself there. The female doesn't always come back. Just because her half is coming, she doesn't want to come along, She's had it enough, So the poor guy. So anyway, so the neshamot that are here not always get their original half, but they can still get their zivuk, and that zivuk is the closest one to the shoresh haneshama. Okay. Shoresh haneshama is another point that I'm going to explain now, which means that there are roots. People, just like you have brothers and sisters that are from the same family, right? Just like you can have a brother and sister who are saying that they're connected to the same father and mother, the same thing sometimes a man can have as his child an uncle of his in the previous reincarnation, because usually the reincarnations come back to the same family. So the same thing with zivugim. It could be that it's not the original you had 3 Gilgulim ago. She didn't want to. They don't let her come along. If the man is a tzaddik, she comes along with him, but not always. And some say the way to know it is if your first date you get married, it's the first girl you marry, and if for her is the first one and you're the first one, this could be neshamot hadashot first time around. You had
everybody's first time.
No, you've dated other people before you met your wife.
Yeah, but you said marry or dating.
No, dating. Dating.
First date, first hour, first minute, boom.
Now this is just a tradition, as some say. I'm not going to say that is accurate. I'm not going to say anything about that. Right, but it's impossible. The idea behind this is that whenever there's no Gilgulim, Neshamot Hadashot, there's less Kitrugim, less accusations, and therefore there's no Kriyat Yamsu. No, it's not difficult. Whenever you see a Shidduch that there's great difficulty, it's because of Kitrugim, accusations, Gilgulim, Tikunim, and therefore it doesn't go easy. The in-laws fight, this and that fight. And sometimes, it doesn't work out because of that. Shalom. Yeah.
That they're not soulmates.
It's very possible that if they're totally incompatible, it's very possible that they're not soulmates. That's correct. Now what happens? What happens is that sometimes people be careful not to be picky, because if you're picky, you might lose your soulmate. If you delay your marriage, you might lose your soulmate. Somebody else might grab her. Right? So then you end up, you can marry a nice person, but it's not the perfect match. Get along fine. Just like you can get along with many people as your friends. But it's not the perfect match. The perfect match, the Torah says, is Ezer Kenegdo. She will be your assistant. She will complement you where you are lacking. You will complement her where she's lacking. And the two of you it's like a puzzle. It's a perfect match. Like they say, made in heaven. You can tell. And they're inseparable. Very good chemistry. Everything flows. Communication. It doesn't mean that they don't have to invest in the marriage. Because of the burden of life, because of parnasah, because of tzar gidul banim, raising children, life takes its toll. You come home, you had a bad day, and you get into an argument. So if one of them is an alcoholic or a drug addict, they will spoil a good marriage. And that the Gemara says, whoever divorces his first wife is real zivug, even the altar sheds tears. It should never happen. But it does happen. The majority of divorces, however, are not soulmates. I hope so. And I believe so.
Sure.
The majority of divorces were never soulmates to begin with.
For sure.
I hope so. Because based on what I can tell, there was no compatibility.
It was a mistake.
It was a mistake. Yeah. Now, but it's not exactly a mistake. The man or the woman at first did not deserve a real soulmate. They would not be hating themselves. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends them something called a zivug al pi ma'asav. A zivug according to his deeds. You're like this, I'll send you somebody just like you. On your level.
Maskin.
Why? Because your zivug, your soulmate, she's a tzaddiket. You're going to spoil her. She's too good for you. You're going to spoil her. Right? So she ends up marrying another guy. Now what happens when that guy does teshuvah? HaKadosh Baruch Hu sometimes has to make that other man pass away. So this woman should go back to this man where she really belongs. And this is a very complex situation. Causes all sorts of problems. But anyway, I just wanted you to understand that a real soulmate is the other half. If it's the other half of the neshama, I sometimes even notice that they even look alike a little bit. You know that? Have you noticed that sometimes the husband and the wife look alike a little bit?
Yes, sometimes the sister.
What?
Especially after a few years of marriage.
Yeah.
They say the brother and sister.
Am I getting darker looking?
No, but I tell you something.
But you've already gotten used to Jahran and Kuban.
The best part, Yehuda, that you say to yourself, if I had my life again, I think the same person. That's it. Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, the point here is that even though you may not have the original half, if it's in the same Shoresh HaNeshama, it's almost just as good. Because that's the correct zivug, that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to have. And when one prays, that's what he should have in mind. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I don't care if she's an orphan. I don't care if she's poor. I don't care if she's in Hong Kong right now. If she's the one that's my best partner, bring her for me. Or let me find her. If you're not picky, and you marry L'Shem Shamayim, and you behave yourself, which is an important condition, then there's no reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu should hold back those two, Zachar and Nekeva, from coming back and meeting. Hashem wants the union to last, right? V'davak be'ishto. The union should be strong. Right? How do you make a union strong? You bring the two that are as much as possible compatible, not only in their nature, but their backgrounds are similar, their outlooks are similar, they're on the similar religious level. If it's the real zivug, it usually stays together very well, it works very well. Alright. Anyway, so this neshama, when it comes down, as we said before, usually the zachar comes down, the nekeva usually follows. The Rabbi tells us zacha, if he is zoche, Hashem brings them together. Lo zacha, halila, even if he meets her, even if he meets the right one, if lo zacha, kenegdo, she will fight him. So that same individual who might be otherwise good for him, Hashem will use her as a tool to fight him. She's going to give him a hard time. She's going to boss him around. Yeah. You've seen this situation, no?
No, too much.
Yeah. Yeah. What is that? That could be Min HaShamayim. Who is using who? Of all people, he's using his wife. Nobody else will bother him. With him he's stuck. With her he's stuck. So a person, when he sees...
But sometimes it's good for the man to have a wife.
Well, when a person sees the situation, he should ask himself, wait a minute, well, she was not like that when I first met her.
That's right.
maybe something's wrong with me.
5 kids later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, let's go on. Next point. Alright, another important point that the rabbis tell us, that just like everything in this world has a purpose, everything serves something, even the smallest blade of grass has a malach, or sar lemala shemetzuveh alav, omer lo tigdal. In other words, every blade of grass, everything in this world has above, in the olamot hayonim, a koach, hamashpi alav, that affects him, that makes him grow, it makes him survive. Take a look, for example, at the rotation of the earth and the rotation of all the planets. As far as astronomers can go back, the world has been turning its axis, rotating over the sun, with the moon. Has it ever stopped?
No.
Has there ever been a day that the sun did not go up? Right. Everything is working exactly, and not only exactly, but completely accurately. Now, you know that there's approximately 93 million miles between the sun and the earth. Why did it have to be 93 million? If it would be a little bit closer, it would burn up. If it would be farther, everything would freeze. Right? Hashem put it at exact position, but wait a minute. Is it always the same? No.
For winter season.
Now listen, something is very interesting. What happens in the winter?
The axis.
Right? There's a tilt.
Yeah.
The northern hemisphere is back, and the southern hemisphere is this way.
Yeah.
So you have the sun closer. Right? There's a change of seasons.
Exactly.
Right? All of these and more details is controlled by what? What does the pasuk say? Tole eret. Kadosh Baruch Hu hangs this little kadur, this little ball, right? It rotates exactly 24 hours per day on its axis, tilting, moving, rotating, in order to achieve the months, the years, the sins, and all of that, perfectly and accurately. What does that prove? That it does it by itself? No, that there's a koach behind it, and that koach, of course, is all of Kadosh Baruch Hu, but he has memunim, he has sarim, that's their job. To keep everything going. Everything, whether it's the growth of the grass, whether it's the weather, even though these things follow certain rules. There's a certain velocity, a certain speed. Everything is by rules and everything is set in motion. Nevertheless, there's some koach behind that controlling this. Next. Alright, this we explained a little bit in the past, that even though everything begins upstairs and eventually comes downstairs, what that means is that ultimately the kochot and the ashpaot come from the upper world to the bottom world. There's only one thing down here that does not come from upstairs.
Gotcha.
And that is bechira chofshi, the free will. Exactly. In other words, this is an important concept because next week, in the next chapters, he will begin to discuss how much we can do through our free will and what we cannot do. We're limited. That's where the mazal comes in. So it's important to keep in mind that there's only one area that we completely control, that does not come up from up there down here. But on the contrary, like I just said before, we are able to affect the upper world through our action. That's called Bechira Chofshi.
Free will.
Yeah. Okay. Another point that he says is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has made two opposite kochot. One is good and one is bad. But Chaz v'Shalom, don't think for a moment that HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates something bad. Anytime something is bad or appears bad to us, all it is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has removed himself from the scene. all the goodness and all the shefa that comes down and that affects us is through what he calls the he'ara, the enlightening or the illuminating of Kadosh Baruch Hu, allowing the shefa to come down. When you see Ra, it's not that there's a Ra in itself, it's that he has removed himself from the scene. When Kadosh Baruch Hu removes his hashgacha, his divine presence from a situation, then the laws of nature, whichever are set in motion, take over. Then things don't look as good as they should be.
What?
Right.
He gets power.
Alright. Now we're going to skip over a little bit. He says there are various levels in Ra. When we talk about Ra, they have different names. One of them is Tum'ah, Choshech, Zu'ama, Chol. Whereas in the Koach HaKdusha, on the other side, you have also different names. You have Kedusha, Tahora, Or, Ubracha. Even though there are different names, there are different kohot, all of these have pekidim memunim, they have sarim, they have ministers who are in charge of them, to carry them out from upstairs to downstairs, whether for good or for bad. And that is the pasuk that we say in the tefillah, Ki malachav, no, another one, Esh lohet. Remember that? A fire. Right? A burning fire. All the fires that go out and destroy are also malachim. In other words, whether you have something good coming or something bad coming, it's all through the power of malachim. Malach is a shaliach, is a messenger.
But he's a good malach and a bad malach.
Yeah. Like you had the malachim who came to visit Abraham Avinu, to cure him or to give him.
This malach, example, this malach came to cure. He will always be a curing malach. He cannot change it.
Right, and he only has one mission. Okay, let's see what else.
But he cannot change. He cannot go to far. His mission is destroyed. That's it.
Right. Okay, I think we'll cover just one more point. One more, maybe just cover one more point, and that is that because there's a connection between the upper worlds and the lower worlds, Sidra Chochmah, Barach HaKadosh Baruch Hu created so in such a way that there should be a tikkun or a kilkul. In other words, through the ma'asim of people, we can affect a tikkun, meaning a repair or something good, something constructive, something positive, or halila a kilkul. The best way to understand this idea is through Ain Hara, which I was going to leave for Wednesday. Yeah. Last week we spoke a little bit about mitzvot and ma'asim tovim, how they affect good deeds and what they accomplish. Now we'll talk about the other way around. Not necessarily averot, but something called Ain Hara, an evil eye. Even though this is something mystical, something which is difficult to understand, I'm going to give you the example I gave before with the tzinor. Imagine that there is a pipeline going from upstairs to downstairs. Through this pipeline, all the shefam beracha is coming down. All the blessings are coming down. A person's health, a person's stamina, how he feels, is controlled through this pipeline. Just imagine for a moment. Okay? Yeah, just imagine that like an umbilical cord. Comes along this power that's called Ain Hara and severs it temporarily, disrupts it. So when that is disrupted, all of a sudden that body is no longer receiving that, and he's wondering, you know what? Why am I not doing well in my parnasah? Why am I all of a sudden so terrible? When a person has been affected by an evil eye, all of a sudden he feels strange. He feels something has happened to him because that pipeline has been disturbed. In the Gemara, there's a discussion if hezek riyah shmei hezek. If there is something, the Gemara discusses damages, various damages that one neighbor can do to another. So the Gemara says, is hezek re'iyah considered the hezek? When somebody looks at his neighbor's field, beautiful grass there, beautiful plants, by staring into your neighbor's field, that re'iyah can cause damage. The next day everything will die. How did that happen? Because of hezek re'iyah. So the rabbis have to determine, is that shmei hezek or lo shmei hezek? Is it called damage or not? The answer is yes, of course it's damage. Even though Ula Asad ze bayadayim shelo, it did not do it with his own physical hands, but it's still a form of damage.
How did he get this power from?
Alright, now this damage, not everybody has it, and the people who have it do not necessarily know that they have it. But according to, I believe the Zohar brings it down, when a person has that particular evil eye, it has something to do with his character, obviously. Plus, at that moment that he observes another individual's assets, there is a malach that accompanies him at that moment, and when he stares, the malach curses him. So it's not necessarily the eye itself, even though some scientists have tried to say that the eyes, have some power from a distance, but I don't know if that's relevant or not. But there are certain kochot ra'im, there are certain bad things in this, like the tum'ah, like kishuf, like witchcraft, that people can abuse and use them for evil, to hurt people. So man, through his free will, can cause harm or can cause a tikkun.
He cannot control his eyes. I mean, he doesn't know.
He may not know, right? But this, he's not necessarily an evil person, right? But he has to be careful not to look.
He doesn't know.
The people who are suspect that somebody might be looking at them should hide themselves. There have been many little children who were born geniuses. At 5 years old, they knew more than the teacher. They knew the Hamash Bahar. I'm sure you've read stories like that. Many of them died very young, at 10, 11, because of Ain Hara. A man a father or mother who has a situation that has to hide, he has to protect them with all sorts of kemiyot, that people should not have kemiyot ayn. Yeah, bad eye. Because there are things out there that hurt. I only gave you this example with the pipeline, with the umbilical cord, that you should understand what happens, the mechanics of what is happening. And that is that there is severing of this pipe of shefa and beracha, that all of a sudden makes this person feel no good. We have an immune system that fights off all this bacteria and disease. But if that immune system is weak, the body cannot fight off that disease. So this pipeline is continuous flow.
How can you keep it so without severing?
What?
How do you make sure that
I'm going to explain that in a moment. As long as this pipeline is working well, a person should do well. He should be able to find his zivuk. He should be able to have panasa. He should have good health. Now, obviously, if a person doesn't eat right, he will need his own health. That's as far as the health is concerned. If he smokes it, he might kill himself. Right? Now, Rosh Hashanah, Kadosh Baruch Hu also makes certain decisions as to what will happen with this person this year. That does not affect the pipeline, that affects the package. There's a package, a chavilah called mazal. What kind of a mazal are you going to have this year? Are you going to have the mazal I gave you from birth, regardless of what it is, or status quo, or I'm going to change it for the better or for the worse? That has nothing to do with the pipeline. Same thing with what the Torah says, Vayayim bechukotai tishmeu, right? If you follow the Torah mitzvot, Am Yisrael will do well, they will defeat their enemies. It has nothing to do with pipeline. That has something to do called Ashgacha Pratit, which I think that begins next week. The divine providence Hashem directly intercedes on our behalf or on behalf of the Jewish nation. Here, this is a link. Remember I said in the very beginning, there are links, there are connections between the upper worlds and the bottom world. Something that we don't understand how, they interact. But there is a connection. It's a spiritual connection, and those connections can somehow be severed. A person goes out and catch a cold, right, if he doesn't dress well. There are certain things that if other people do to him, they can harm him. Now, if Hashem does not approve of it, that this man should not get harmed, then he will make sure they two don't meet. But if that man does not have enough merits, Hashem says, Olam keminhago nohei. The world will continue according to the basic laws of nature. To meet, he might be affected. He might need, therefore, the help of a rabbi or somebody to get him out of this predicament. Or he needs to protect himself with the various amulets that protect one from Ain Hara, or to make sure that he doesn't, go around these people who he suspects might have Ain Hara. But you should know, Ain Hara is a very powerful effect that causes tremendous amount of damage on a daily basis to people who don't even realize it. The Gemara even says in one place that 99% of people die from Ain Hara and only 1 from natural causes. What that means, obviously, people die from old age too, but what that means is that the Ain Hara could have precipitated it.
Rabbi, can one person give the evil eye, Ain Hara, to many people at one time?
Not at one time, because he has to actually have eye contact. I mean.
Yeah. One person at a time.
Yeah. There are several segulot to get rid of it.
But you protect yourself by amulet,
Yeah, there are several prayers that you can say, that somebody can say for you, to remove it from you. There are several things that can be done.
So there is a cure.
Of course there's a cure.
But there is also something to stop it from reaching you, like you say.
A kamiyah. Or amulets.
So, where did you get this kamiyah from?
That's people need to. All these things may help, may not help, depending on who wrote it.
If you win the lottery, people don't publicize it.
That's right. Otherwise, you'll get a lot of junk mail too. Okay.
Before you forget, next week.
By the way, is there life on other planets?
Yes.
No.
No. I don't think.
Hashamayim, Shamayim, Hashem. Haaretz natan lebnei Adam. That's it. Only this land is for mortals, for human beings. But not only because of this pasuk. You should know. We said it earlier on. Everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made in this world was made for a purpose, right? We said that before?
Yeah.
Not only was it made for a purpose, it was made to serve mankind. Yeah. What does that mean? That whatever man needs is here. Whatever he needs most is in abundance. Air, water. Whatever he needs less, there's less of gold. There's not as much gold as there is water, right? Because we need it less. Whatever we need more, there's more of. Go look for water in Mars. They're still looking over there in Pasadena. They're looking for water in Mars. You won't find it. Why? Because there are no human beings there.
They don't need it.
They don't need it. So why should there be there?
What
You know what I mean?
UFOs?
Yeah.
The men that came out of
That has to do with demons. We'll talk about that some
Or
other
angels.
time.
It could be angels too.
No, it has to do
the
with
demons.
What about next week? For what time next week?
Let's just finish over here. Okay? Yeah. No, I just said that there's various amulets that are help protect. Amulets, kamiya, certain things that are written on parchment that you wear that help. If they were written by a person who knows what he's doing, that's number one. Number two is by not letting you be seen by those people who you suspect who may have an evil eye, especially those who are jealous, and especially women. I think they usually tend to observe, but I may be wrong. But men too. No, it could be both.
I think some more women. You're right.
Sure.
Women always, they never such each other.
And you have to be careful not to be ostentatious, not to draw attention, to yourself by driving the most expensive car.
Wealthy have to be very careful.
Right? Sure, exactly.
The tablet's broke because of Ainara. Should have been the tablet.
Okay, let's see if we got everything over here. Okay, I think the last point that we can mention over here is that even though there are certain things that are controlled by nature that are set in motion according to certain rules, that the upper worlds affect the bottom worlds, there are certain things that are called zerot haboreh, that are decrees of Borei Olam. In other words, even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world and set everything in motion, it doesn't mean that He doesn't do anything. He's still around and still intercedes through decrees and through miracles. And that we will see later on a little bit more elaborated under Hashgacha Peratit. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not just create and bail out and no longer around like some philosophers wanted to believe. They believed in a creator. They said it's obvious. But He's no longer around. They have care. Look at all these people suffering. Look at so many people in pain. Look at all these good people in trouble. Why? Then He must not be around. No, He's still around. But there are zerot. There are certain decrees that He decrees, that He intercedes on the behalf of people, and sometimes He withdraws, and that's called hastarat panim. That we don't see Him, and it appears as though He doesn't exist, but it doesn't mean He doesn't intercede. Okay, I think we'll leave it at that.
Right? If a person in trouble and wants her to succeed,
somebody whose loved one has departed. Yeah.
The person's wife,
right,
or wife's husband,
right,
has departed, and you're having a lot of problems. Can you request that loved one to intercede Hashem on your behalf?
Sure, we always do that when we go to the kever. The proper time is on the yard side when the nefesh is there. The
you can do that.
Because those who have departed are aware. The rabbis tell us those who are still alive. And there's even a segula. In case you go to the cemetery and it's not the your side or your father or a friend, and you want to call him, there's a way you can call him. I'll tell you some other time. You want to know now? I'll tell you now.
Your state is on the
Let's say you go to the cemetery. You go to the Basatin, right? Right? In Egypt, right?
In Haifa to my grandma.
Right. You want your grandmother's side, not the your side. She wants to hear. She wants to know that you're there. She will know. You want to speak to her. You know what you do? What? Do a stone. No, they don't need to hear you. They can hear you without the stones. Yeah. There's a segula that you should be minadev. You should make a neder. Any neshama that happens to be around here in the cemetery right now, I will give $5-10 le'ilu that neshama if you go call my relative. They run and let know that relative that their nephew, their grandfather is here. Please can they come? So that's the way to do it. No, you give them cash. Cash. You pay them in cash. By the way, in cash. Of course.
To whom?
To the poor. To tzedakah, obviously. You can't pay them. Obviously, when you reach Bet HaKnesset, you give the money for tzedakah, but that tzedakah you give le'ilu nishmat for the soul of that one who did you that favor. You don't know who it
You
is,
can just say anyone's name.
but you can assume at any given time that there are neshamot
How do you get the money?
in the cemetery. What?
I'll tell you.
The money you have with you,
I don't know. A couple minutes, probably.
They said 200 neshamot are flying there.
Rabbi,
You ask one of them, you don't know
you
who,
have
anyway.
your sick on a certain day, you cannot go to the cemetery the day before or the day after,
It's always best to go that day.
on that day.
Yeah,
But if not, you've explained to us how to get there.
Right, yeah. Sometimes, I mean, if you have no choice, you can go the day before, you can go
Because
the
if
day
it's like
after.
a Friday and
Right, or it's Rosh Chodesh, sometimes the Neshama is not there, it's in Gan Eden.
Do you have to be in the
Certain
cemetery?
days of the year.
Do you have to be in the cemetery, or can you do it when you go to the cemetery and visit the...
No, in the cemetery.
Wait,
In the cemetery. In the cemetery.
What, the Neshama goes to
What?
the 7 days.
Right. Part of that. Yeah, part of it.
Not the neshama, the nefesh, no?
Yeah, the nefesh.